Welcome to the Holistic Solution. They call me Ferdinand, the bringer of balance, leader of many disciplines, and the host of the Holistic Solution. We're in episode 4 today. We're going to be talking about childhood obesity. RFK came on I believe it was a news station. I watched it just the other day. I don't remember exactly the source, but RFK came on a news platform and he informed the people that 60% of the American population has a major disease. That is very, very alarming. Those are at epidemic levels. And understand that it's not just the adults. Many of our children are suffering from some of these same diseases, osteoporosis, diabetes, and the list goes on and on and on and on. We're looking at many of our children dealing with ADHDs and different types of mental health issues and diseases. Listen, I brought a friend and she has done some amazing things with her own health. Let's bring Antoinette to the stage. How you doing, sister?
Hey, Ferd, so good to see you.
It's a
I'm
blessing to see
trying to
you.
find the right outlet for this charger. You know how it is. Like you plug up your laptop, you think it has enough juice, and in all actuality, it doesn't. So give
I
me a moment. Let me unplug this.
So one of the things that we're going to be talking about, everybody out there in the audience, please throw your comments in the
Okay.
throw your questions in the comments. We're going to address a few things tonight. We're going to be talking about childhood obesity, and part of the reason why we're talking about this is because a lot of our children are having different types of issues that the parents don't understand. Right, so we're going to clear up some of that today. We don't have as many analytics and all these different things to talk about today, but we're going to use the eye test. We're going to talk about what we know concerning our own journeys in health and how to give empowerment to each of these parents out there.
Yep. So I have to I don't know if we're still live or not, but let's see.
Yes, we're live.
Okay, hold on. I'm sorry for it. I'm trying to turn down the notifications. Um, but yeah, so one of the things that we talked about before we went live was I was diagnosed with cancer January 31st of 2023. So it's been about 2 years. Ferdinand was one of the first people to reach out to me to say, sis, I saw your post. You need to do all these things. And I was like, okay, wait. But the level of knowledge and I had my own knowledge as well, but it's different when you're in it. It's different when you're in it. You can't see the building when you're standing in it, right? So I'm so grateful that he was able to come from the outside in and say, you need to do a water fast, you need to get this, and you need to do this, and etc. And so he recently made a post about I don't remember what it was about, but I was like, well, let's also talk about childhood obesity because I don't know. I've learned how important nutrition has been in my life, even before cancer and certainly after cancer. And even now that I'm working out about 4 to 5 days a week, lifting weights and all the things like that. But it saddens me when I see a child that is the size of an adult. And by the way, this is not body shaming. This is not picking on children. I have children myself. Ferdinand has children as well. This is not that. But this is opening up a discussion, especially for our community. I'm Black, if you can't tell, especially for our community to say, okay, how did we get here? Is it generational? Is it genetics? Is it, we often say in our communities, like, oh, well, I'm just big boned or he's just big boned. There's no reason that a 10-year-old should be the size, height, weight, the height, maybe you can't control that. That's genetics. But there's no reason that a 10-year-old should be 180 pounds. And I'm not making these numbers up. Like I think a lot of us see it, right? We know adults, full grown adults, men and women that are 180 pounds. So I think it's just time for us to open the conversation about, obesity is preventable. It is. It's certainly for children. Like give them a chance, to talk about, okay, is it generational? Is it genetics? Is it about making better choices? And how do you get there? Because I think we can all agree normally when you see a child that has a few extra pounds, whether it be they're overweight or now clinically considered obese, you normally also see a parent or a grandparent with the child that has the same area of opportunity as far as losing weight and eating right. So and none of this is scripted. I just commented on the post and here we are.
First thing I want to do is congratulate you on your journey. I've seen the self-discipline. I've seen the results of the work that you've done. Great job on healing yourself. And I want everybody out there to understand that everybody heals themselves. There's no doctor that heals you. This woman did this on her own. Now, she may have listened to a few different people, whoever that may have been, but at the end of the day, she did the work and ultimately pulled herself out of that situation that she was in.
Because Ferdinand, what a lot of people, and I haven't fully shared the story yet, I will eventually, because I know that's my gift, right? We know that our gift will make room for us. And I know that the gift that God has given me is my story. I know that. But to your point, what many people don't know is I couldn't even finish treatment. I couldn't finish treatment because I was having, as the oncologist mentioned, atypical side effects that they couldn't explain. And he felt like, you know what? I don't really know the lasting impacts of these side effects you're having at such a low dose of radiation. We stopped radiation twice. And I had to have radiation every day. We stopped it. So to your point, as far as healing myself, of course, I give credit to God, but yeah, like science cannot take the credit for it because I couldn't even finish the treatment. We didn't know whether the treatment was going to work or not. So I had to sit on pins and needles for months about whether or not, was it enough treatment? Was it not enough? Did the cancer maybe move to a different part of the body because of the organ it was in? I mean, all these things. But to your point, as far as your body, but your body though has to have the right environment to heal itself. And I'm not just talking about your physical body, everything, your nervous system, you have to heal trauma, you may have to go to therapy. Listen, and even your home environment. One of the things I did too, and then we'll move on to obesity because we can just talk about so many different things. One of the things I did too is I said, okay, what is it in my environment, in my home environment? Although I have a clean home, a nice home, was it in my home environment that could be carrying some type of energy that's toxic? Because you're the one that said, Antoinette, cancer is toxic. It's just, it's a disease, but it's toxic. And that got me thinking, what else in my home may be creating an environment that doesn't serve me anymore, that's taking up space, that's allowing me not to heal? One of the things I did is I hired an organizer. I said, now, I didn't know organizers got paid what they get paid now. I didn't know that. I was like, your rate is what? But that helped me. I said,
You wanted a kidney.
What? I said, but let me finally now go through my attic and get rid of stuff that I just don't need anymore, right? Let me go through my bedroom closet and get rid of clothes and handbags and shoes and stuff that I just don't need anymore. Also, at the time, I had dark furniture. I had dark brown furniture. It was beautiful, well made. Let me lighten up my environment as well. Let me bring some purity into my environment. So now I have white Italian leather furniture, right? So even those little things, and of course, live plants that I didn't have before. So yeah, so healing, you can heal yourself, but sometimes it's an inside out as well as an outside in kind of job. And you have to have the right environment to heal yourself.
Listen, you just gave a mastery lesson, right? So what you just explained, many of the let's say the alchemist type scholars, they would say that what you just said is called as above, so below, as below, so above, right? So this is the divine paradox, okay, of how, and then you applied it to healing, where there is a JUCO applied, right? So a JUCO is to draw out from within, and then you have education, or you have your existential that is put in as well, right? And I would say that it works exactly the way that you just said, and in those different realms and dimensions: spiritual, mental, physical, right? And then we start getting into the physical, then we're talking about the emotional, and we're talking about all these other different layers that we've got to jump into, right? So this is powerful what you're talking about. And I want every parent out there to understand that everything that we're talking about also applies to the children,
Yeah.
right? This is a very, very important thing. We're shaping foundations when we're talking about a child's health. That first 7 years is very important on how bones are structured, how veins are structured, how blood flow moves, how the brain develops. The first 3 years definitely super important, but definitely those first 7 to 9 years. So these are things that we need to be thinking about. Now, if a child is suffering from obesity, more than likely something else comes with that. Because when we think about obesity in today's world, we're looking at a few different things. I would say the three major factors is nutrition,
Mhm.
entertainment, and what the child is drinking every day. And then I would even say we'd even want to go a little further than that. We might even have to just incorporate the whole 6 keys of life here. Okay. And I put the 6 keys of life on the screen for everybody. With a child who is getting most of their exercise like this, and then it's like, oh, mommy, I'm hungry. Order me Domino's. Okay. So they got Domino's 4 or 5 times a week. In the AM, they get up and cinnamon toast crunch, Lucky Charms, sugar smacks, bacon, eggs, cheese biscuits and grits, right? Any of this is but pancakes. These are the option oatmeal. These are the options, right? And then the chef comes in called mommy and makes whatever it is that the baby wants, right? And this is every
Yeah.
single day that this child is eating a whole lot of sugar. This is the bulk of children who are dealing with obesity, in my personal opinion. I'm not in their homes.
Right.
However, what I do understand is when we're retaining weight, that has a lot to do with the body not being able to process what it has been taken in. More than likely, a lot of those children are not having bowel movements every day. So the food is backing up in their intestinal tract and they're not moving enough. They're
Yeah.
not getting enough movement for the stage of life that they're in. So now we've got a problem. And that problem is called metabolic acidosis.
That's it. And so do you think, so back to the choices, right? So when my children were young, they're 26 and 20 years old now, and I was a young mom, a poor
Oh,
mom,
time out. What? Stop it.
Yeah.
Nah,
Yeah.
you 26.
No, well, no. No, so but to your point relating to the choices, right? Children will only get what's available to them. So, for example, my son in his entire life, he's a 26-year-old. He's only been trick or treating twice. And my daughter's never been trick or treating. So, kids don't miss what they've never had. So, when you see a young child that it's clear that this child is obese. The question then becomes, is it a matter of what you mentioned? Is it a matter of education that the parents, because I believe, and again, this is not picking on anyone's kids. This is not talking about children. This is not attacking that. That's not what this is. It's not what this is. But when we consider that, generally speaking, being obese is generational, do you think that just the education and execution is sufficient? Where does it stop? Like where does it stop?
I'm glad you asked me that, right? So I'm gonna go ahead and come up on the screen for a second. Our children become what we are, not what we tell them. Okay. Every parent out there, please listen to what I'm about to say. Okay. The law of suggestion is like this. This is my personal definition for it. We become what we experience in repetition. Okay.
Mm,
Well, a parent who is consistently in the home, that child is experiencing that parent in repetition, experiencing their emotions, experiencing the way they communicate,
mm,
experiencing their decision making, experiencing their eating habits, experiencing their time that they go outside and do stuff. Whatever it is that the parent does, the child is experiencing that. And that child is going to imitate those things. Then there's going to be other things where the parent is just going to be like, listen, this is what I do, so this is what you do, right? And then the child is going to go ahead and do it because the parent is doing it. So if we see children who are having health problems, more than likely the family, certain family members are also having those same health problems. Now let's take that and let's apply that to this generational situation that we're looking at here, where we might see mom, grandma, and both of them are overweight, or they have certain types of problems. Maybe they're in the cart at the store that they can drive through the
Mhm.
store. These different types of assistance, electronic assistance machinery. Well, what is that? That's not hereditary diseases. That's
Mhm.
hereditary habits. And we don't understand why we're doing the habit, right? And then that takes us to values, traditions, right? So why are the traditions happening? What are the traditions? Well, they're Christmas, Easter, um, Independence Day, and the list goes on, right? Birthdays, right? Summertime, out of school, right? All of these things are a European construct. They're not natural for you. So when you're going through these things consistently, no matter how many generations that it's been, it never was for you. You adopted it. So adopting it puts you in a position where if you didn't learn the origin of it, you might not understand what type of effects that it's going to bring. And you might start thinking that the effects that you're getting is from the devil. It is from the devil, right? Because the devil is right here.
Mm.
Now, those who want to solve the problem, you got to look at this one number, 168. If you multiply 24 times 7, you'll get 168. That'll tell you how many hours are in a week. And you need to do an audit of your time. You need to look at how you've been using your time. However, you've been using your time, no matter what it is, sit down and find the origin of every single thing that you think is worthy of your time so that you can truly understand what you've been practicing. See, a lot of the times when we're looking at individuals who may be dealing with certain types of diseases, there's something driving that. You brought it up earlier. You talked about it, perspective on regress trauma, right? Well,
Mhm.
that trauma can go back many lifetimes, or that
Mhm.
trauma could go back to the childhood, or that trauma could go back to teenage years, or that trauma could go back to an earlier part of adulthood. But it's still going to more than likely be some type of a perspective on regress trauma. But what the first thing we have to do is we have to look at what we're doing. And then we have to identify that we want something better and that what we're doing isn't working. And in that space, now we have the awareness to be able to get those downloads, to be able to receive, because now we're in a space where we can actually sacrifice. So before I go too far, I want to bring my sister back to the stage.
Yeah, you dropped so many gems. So, and I obviously I've started taking notes. But so like you said, being able to recognize that there's an issue here and we need to kind of break the cycle. But if we're honest, especially in our community and even some other communities, some other races and cultures, being thick or being big boned is socially accepted. No one recognizes that there's actually a problem. Me growing up then, and even my children growing up then, you're often teased,
let
or
me
you
tell me
often, huh?
let me jump. I'm sorry for cutting you off. Let me jump in on that. Okay, because you're right. Our people, melanated people in America, they respect strength.
Mm.
Okay. So when you run into a problem that you just cannot fix and you don't know how to fix this problem, what you do is you find strength in it. We see it all the time in the church when somebody gets a chance to do their testimony and they're like, oh, thank you, Lord. I got this diabetes, but the Lord allowed me to eat that cheeseburger that I wanted, Lord. Thank you so much, Lord. And what many of us take from it, that's sitting in the sanctuary, is that this woman is strong enough to get that cheeseburger that she wanted. And we don't realize what's really happening there. But what am I really talking about? I'm talking about a mentality of strength
Right.
that is out of control right now. It's
and
not
out of
bad to have a
perspective.
mentality of strength. It's just a problem that we're out of control. But you got the floor, my sister.
Yeah, and even out of perspective, because again, I mean, if it's socially accepted, because that's the first step to change, right? Is even recognizing that there's a problem. Houston, we have a problem. But if for generations families have socially accepted that actually no, this isn't a problem. I can't tell you how many times I've heard everybody in our family is big. I can't tell you how many times I've said that, and I'm like, and again, this is not body shaming. You can be, I know a lot of voluptuous, beautiful women that are plus size women, and they are bad. Okay. This is about being healthy, and this is about setting the right tone and the right expectations, like what you just mentioned, the parents basically setting the tone of, well, yeah, in this house we don't eat this, or we don't eat past this time of night, or we don't drink. My kids have never had Kool-Aid. My kids have never had Kool-Aid because I'm not, wait a minute. Once I got smart enough to say, okay, yeah, I grew up in the hood. And so for us, we kind of had to have Kool-Aid if we wanted something sweet to drink. But even with that, my mom, there was a limit. If we had Kool-Aid on Sunday with dinner, that was it. And then after that, the rest of it is probably going to go down the drain. But once you recognize what white sugar does to you, you say to yourself, oh, no, like my children have never had Kool-Aid. And guess what? They don't miss it because they've never had it. Once they got older, to your earlier point, they got maybe 10 or 11 years old where I knew they were healthy and they were thriving, etc. If we went out to dinner, them having a Sprite was like a treat. Oh, they would be so happy. If we ate fast food, it was a treat. One, I couldn't afford it. As well as two, I just knew, just how bad fast food was. I remember there being a documentary. Someone recorded some French fries from McDonald's and how they didn't decompose after an extended period of time. I will never forget that. And I was like, yeah, I am never feeding my kids McDonald's ever. It's never ever happening. But again, so with it being generational but preventable but socially accepted, what is a kid to do? For like, what's a kid to do?
Well, the children, what they will do is follow what the parents do. Even if society is doing whatever society is doing, the children will ultimately still follow the parent. And let's just say that as the child grows, the child becomes an adult, and the
Mhm.
child kind of steps away from those lessons. Well, what we'll more than likely see from those children is the prodigal son return, or the prodigal daughter return eventually, because they're going to step away. They're going to see how hard things were, and they're going to be like, "Dang, man, I done finally hit rock bottom. Like, I got to figure out when things was working out right." And then, boop, click, just like that. Well, I
Mhm.
remember when I was 15 years old, and when I ate that them vegetables and I drank that water that mama told me to drink and eat, I was good. I went
Mhm.
back outside, played basketball, I cut the grass, I did my hair, I did whatever, right? I had energy. And then
Right.
we start to gravitate back to what worked, right? So now let's go back to this situation with the children. Is it difficult for the children who come from the households where they're getting what they need, and then they go out to the schools and they're
Mhm.
serving nonsense in the cafeteria, or they're around the Chick-fil-A's all the time, and the Little Caesars and all these different places? Yeah, it's challenging,
Right.
and hopefully these children have strong parenting at home to say, hey, you leave them places alone. Don't even touch them places. If somebody try to offer you some food, don't eat it. Right? I'll make sure you got plenty in your little lunchbox for snacks and all that kind of stuff. Don't eat nothing from nobody else. Well, that might be a really, really, really small population of
Right.
parents.
Right.
So for the children, all I can really say is listen to your parents, and hopefully the parents have did the real work. Hopefully they're walking that path of purity. Hopefully they're learning what they need to learn. And I want every parent out there to understand, listen, the information, you don't got to go and read these holistic health books. You could read the Bible and find this information. It's in the Quran. It's in the Analects of Confucius. It is in the Vedic and Manic laws. It is in the Metu Neter. Listen, it is all over the place in our ancient doctrines. It says in these ancient doctrines to fast. It says in these ancient doctrines that the leaves of the tree and the fruit of the tree is your food, and that the herbs are for the healing of the nation. Listen, I could go further and further, right? but it still rests upon the parents to be that example. And for the children, all we can do for real is just kind of hope and pray and meditate that they make better decisions. It's a hard thing to kind of put on children. However, this is just where we are, you know.
Yeah, and as you mentioned earlier, like even activity level, I think that, back in the day before digital technology became what it is today, when you came home, you had to go outside. Even as a girl, you had to go outside. Kids couldn't wait to get a bike for Christmas. Am I lying? You couldn't you couldn't wait to get a bike for Christmas. And the kids now, it's like, oh, they want the newest PlayStation or the newest game system, whatever it may be. Again, I haven't had kids in the house in a while, but you couldn't wait to get a pair of skates. You couldn't wait to get a bike. You could not wait. It would be freezing outside on Christmas Day. And one thing for sure, two things for certain, you're going to go outside and get on your bike despite it being freezing cold. Sometimes you would get in trouble for not coming home when the lights came on. And this may sound old, but it's not, we're not that old, by the way. But you would get in trouble for not coming home by the time the lights came on because you were outside having such a good time, whether it be playing tag or whether it be playing kickball or whether it be riding your bike or, sometimes we would knock on doors and run in the hoods. Don't do that. But, the activity level was there. And so even if there were bad eating habits, because you can't outwork a bad diet. That's another topic of conversation for another time for adults, because I can't tell you the number of people that I see in the gym. And yes, I'm grateful that y'all are in the gym. Shout out to you for getting your body moving. But the number of people that I've been seeing in the gym for years and they still look the same, they haven't lost a pound, and and their body hasn't changed shape either. Again, because you can't outwork a bad diet. You can't come to the gym and get it in for 90 minutes and go home and, as you said, eat Chick-fil-A and eat pizza and all these other things. But for the kids, I definitely think that while you can't outwork a bad diet, I think for children, if they're required to continue to have physical activity, because let's be honest, even recreation in schools is changing. It just is. Those recreational and gym programs are just being underfunded, and now there aren't as many educators that's choosing that track relating to their career choice and things like that. So kids used to be able to get the recreation both in school as well as at home. It was a requirement. Your parents would even say, you ain't about to sit in here all day long. You better go outside somewhere, right? And now you don't see that. So I think that if the eating habits were bad, but if the children still were required to be physically active, then perhaps they would have a fighting chance. Because to your point, if they can't cook their own food and make their own food choices, and if they're still being fed pig feet and fried chicken on a random Monday morning and macaroni and cheese for dinner and all these things, like, I don't know if you've seen this. There's this trend now on one of the social media platforms, I can't remember which one, where these parents are making these huge plates of what we would probably call soul food. And they chronologize them making these huge plates of soul food and feeding it to their son, to their daughter. They chronologize it over the week's time. And they post it as if it's something to celebrate. And I watch it and I cringe. I'm like, wait a minute, who is that plate for? And then they turn the camera around and say, this kid is like 8 or 9 years old. And I'm like, that mom, dad, that is not anything to celebrate. Like, sis, I'm glad you can burn in the kitchen. I'm glad you can get down. But if you don't take half the stuff off that plate for that child, what in the world?
See, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I think that what we got to identify for the parents is that many of the foods that they're serving their children, once the child ingests that food and it starts to break it down, the body turns it into sugar, right? So once the bread is turned into sugar, then the child might have ate some candy too. So the child just had a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. That was the healthy meal the child had, right? Didn't realize it was turning to sugar. But then the child ate some Skittles. Then they had a Slurpee, right? Might have had some ice cream. Then later on, the parents bought some pizza or whatever, not realizing all of this is turning into sugar. Well, what's happening to that child? That sugar is eventually crossing the blood-brain barrier. And now what we start to see is erratic behavior. We start to see a little bit more violence, or we start to see stuttering speech, or we start to see um, um, a memory lapses, and all different types of things. And this is in children. This is in the child who's 8, 9 years old, 6, 7,
Or
8.
the inability to be able to focus.
Yes.
What some people will call ADHD. And really, to your point, it's the diet.
Yes. It's the
Yeah.
diet, and like you were saying about the sedentary lifestyle. So we got to get the movement. I want everybody to understand. I'm going to put the 6 keys of life back on the screen because I want to make a point here with the 6 keys. If we're going to make a dope pot of gumbo, we got to have the proper ingredients. We got to have water, right? So this is the nutrition part. This is the this is this is the nutrition and the water that goes into the pot. Okay. Now we got to also have some heat. So this is the sun, right? We got to have some goals on how we like this thing to taste. We also got to have some goals on how many people we're going to serve, right? So this is going to help us to understand how to make this pot of gumbo. Now, one of the most important parts of cooking this gumbo is 2 parts: the exercise and sleep part, right? So if we want that gumbo to taste good, we can't just put stuff in the pot. We got to stir it, right? And stirring it is going to help us to have that taste and have everything kind of moving together, simmering the way it's supposed to. Now, once it's done cooking, we probably just going to put it on low and just let it sit there, right? Sleep. So even in the pot, cooking the pot of gumbo, we're utilizing the same principles that we're using to structure this carbon-based cybernetic machine that you're looking at right here, that has a controller in the pineal gland space. Now, everybody out there, please understand, you gotta get movement. Your blood only flows effectively at its top effective and efficient points if you are in movement. And you need water. You need a certain amount of oxygen. Your children need a certain amount of sleep, because see, repair to the human body, repair to this carbon-based cybernetic machine happens primarily while you're sleeping. And this is the reason why you would deep breathe for an 8-hour period. If anybody out there can deep breathe purposefully with their conscious mind, and they can do it for more than an hour, I'll clean my bank account out and give it to you.
Well, you
Because
might have a taker. I don't know if I count. You might have a taker.
that's a really, really challenging thing to do, because like if any of us was to do this exercise, right? I'm gonna do 4 deep breaths.
Yeah.
You might feel a little tiny bit lightheaded after you finish the 4th one. Now imagine if you did that for a whole hour. Well, while you're sleeping, you do it for 8 hours or for 6 hours or for however many hours that you're sleeping. And because of that massive amount of oxygen that's coming into your body, into your bloodstream, now your brain is able to work more effectively. Your brain is using and we're even talking about the children here, all y'all parents out there who are listening. For the children, they are doing the exact same thing, and their brain is utilizing up to or maybe even more than 30% of the water that's in the human body at the time of sleep. So what does that mean? That means the brain is massively at work. It needs a lot of oxygen to get the work done, right? So sleep becomes super important. Now, we were just talking a little bit about exercise and movement. There's a lot of children out there, they want to have the game, right? So let's talk about some solutions real quick, and I'm gonna give the floor back to my sister. Let the child have the game. Don't take the game away. Let the child have that game, but limit the use of it. And then at the same time, make it a reward, right? Get that child some work to do. Child got to clean the kitchen. Child got to vacuum the floor. Something. Definitely, child got to keep the room clean, and they shouldn't be able to touch that thing until they've done those things. Now there's some movement that happened. Even though the child isn't outside swinging a baseball bat or throwing a touchdown pass or shooting a three, right? That child's still getting movement, and that child is building self-discipline simultaneously and earning what that child has. So now the mentality is totally different. The day that you say, all right, eat these vegetables, well, you might not have as much resistance.
And I think, to your point too, as far as creating new routines within the keys of life. One of the things that I know that parents can struggle with is, okay, we're already here now. He or she is already used to drinking soda and drinking half and halves from Chick-fil-A and eating, waffles and eggs and bacon every morning before they go to school and pizza at school. So now what do we do? Right? Because listen, we have to give people practical advice. I would say to Ferd's point, like, don't take the video game. No, don't take it. But maybe you have 30 minutes on the video game. You got to go run outside for 30 minutes. Go knock on some of your neighbors' doors. Of course, if that's the kind of neighborhood you live in. Go tell your friends, come outside. Let's toss the ball for a little bit. Or go jogging. And perhaps, if we think that this is generational, perhaps the parents can go jogging with the child. Or perhaps it's the child's responsibility to go out and walk the dog every day in the morning before you go to school and when you come home, because that can be activity as well. And then as it relates to the food, small changes. Okay, so the child likes to have a half and half, an Arnold Palmer. Here in the DMV, we call it a half and half. Some people call it an Arnold Palmer. They make lemonade iced tea in Crystal Light packets. It's no sugar and it tastes just like a half and half. That's an adjustment. So the child, yes, has gotten used to having that flavor, maybe with their lunch or with their breakfast, whatever, however you guys do that. But that's a small adjustment. And perhaps in the morning, instead of having 5 strips of pork bacon and waffles and eggs and all this stuff, and sending the child to school with all those heavy carbs that's going to make them sleepy and maybe distracted and all the other things, maybe adjust it to maybe just 2 strips of bacon. Not to say no bacon at all. Hopefully you'll get there eventually, but not to say no bacon at all, but just those small adjustments. And maybe even, yeah, oatmeal is carby, it can turn into sugar. But again, if the person is active, it's not as bad, because sometimes I'll have oatmeal and blueberries as a pre-workout. But again, it's oatmeal and blueberries. I'm not adding all the sugar. I'm not adding brown sugar. I'm not adding, it is literally, and it doesn't taste the best, right? But it's still cut oats and blueberries. And if I'm feeling spicy, I might add some cinnamon to it. So there are minor things that you can do. And if your child likes nuggets, for example, okay, nuggets, okay. From the frozen section, no, maybe not. From Chick-fil-A all the time, no, maybe not. But guess what? You can make nuggets. Get you some chicken breasts, cut them up, batter them up, if that's your child's thing. But again, at least you're making it from home. At least you know what's in it. And you're doing it in moderation. You're not going to Chick-fil-A every day. You're not going to McDonald's 3 and 4 times a week. That's so just those small adjustments. It doesn't have to be anything large and immediate, because that's where it's not sustainable. That's why a lot of people, when they make these New Year's resolutions, they don't last, because you're jumping off the deep end doing something completely in opposition to what your normal life is. But the small steps in the right direction, I promise you'll look up and be like people are surprised to learn I don't use salt. I don't use salt. I don't even buy it. They're like, what do you season your food with? Other things, not salt. So again, once you do it and you do it enough, and you have, like you mentioned earlier, the repetition. Once you do it enough, before you know it, you'll look up and you'll have a completely different life as it relates to food for yourself and for your children, and really giving them a chance.
Absolutely. And it becomes a thing of changing the palate slowly. So it becomes like what Antoinette just said, right? Please understand that she's giving some major wisdom. And this is coming from a mother, y'all. So please listen to her, because she's giving some jewels right now. Added salt and added sugars, we gotta eliminate those from the diet, because we don't need them. You want to sweeten up your food? There's agave, there's honey, there's a couple other options. You want to season your food? Well, she just told you. There's cayenne pepper, there's rosemary, and the list goes on of all these different herbs that you can use to create a great tasting meal, right? So start to experiment, try some different things, take out the things that are considered toxic. If you're not sure what's considered toxic, listen, GOOGLE.com. Okay. Go to Google and type in, is this bad for the body? Is this good for the body? I guarantee it'll be right at the top of the page, and they'll have all kinds of AI,
Yep.
different information up there that'll be super valuable for you. And you want to do this because you want to give your children the best. Every parent wants to give their child the best. And the way to give your child the best, listen real closely, everybody. This is how you do it. I'm about to give it away for free. You got to become the best yourself.
Mm, mm.
Our children become what we are, not what we tell them. And the
That's
reason why this statement is true is because of the law of suggestion. We become what we experience in repetition, and children experience their parents in repetition.
that's good.
So,
That's good.
sister, we're gonna go ahead and close it down, but I'm gonna go ahead and give you the floor so you can give some your closing remarks.
Oh, well, thank you. I'm grateful for the time. And I know that some people may listen to this and say, okay, yeah, they're doing too much, or that's too much, or they may be spacey, or all new information can be scary, but it doesn't have to be. It doesn't it doesn't have to be. Again, my kids are 26 years old and 20 years old, and they have great eating habits just because that's how they were raised. I mean, I never forced anything on them, but with the auto suggestion and just the way that I lived my life and the way my mom lived her life and my father, and I mean, for generations, we do not have obese people in our family just because fresh food, like my grandparents had a garden, so if it's not available, they won't miss it. And even if you're already on the wrong path and you want to correct your path, it's easier than you think. But to first point, you got to do the research. You have to be willing to put in a little more time to try things out that may be new and different and scary. And maybe even sometimes dealing with the comments that you may get from your friends and your family. Well, why are you eating that? Why are you not eating that? Well, you don't eat that no more. You think you better than, oh. um, but there are options available. And even if you live in an area that doesn't have a lot of the what I call the nicer or top tier grocery stores like your Whole Foods and your Wegmans and Trader Joe's and things like that, a lot of places nowadays you can order things online. So don't let the lack of available food and available options stop you from just improving what you're already doing. I promise you it's easier than what it may sound like. But first, thank you for your time and thank you for opening the floor for this dialogue. I hope we don't make too many people mad.
Sister, I really appreciate you coming through and giving your wisdom. Listen, everybody out there, that's a mother talking. She just told you that she's got two grown children who are adults. She done raised them through every stage of life, and now they out there getting it. They out there doing great things on their own as a result of the amazing teachings that they got during their childhood, and learning how to make decisions that were aligned with righteousness, that were aligned with purity, that were aligned with truth. Listen, this is an opportunity for every single parent out there. Okay, listen to both parents. Antoinette's got two children. Ferdinand has six. And my children are 24, 18, about 13, about to turn 14, 8 about to turn 9, 6 about to turn 7, 2 about to turn 3. Right. And I make sure that they eat a certain type of way. I make sure my wife and I make sure that they get a certain amount of exercise. All of our children are athletes. And at the same time, they're reading. They're keeping a certain type of balance, right? And this is available to every single parent. This is just the utilization of time differently with different types of goals, right? And this is open to every single one of you. And understand how you handle a child's upbringing determines what your lineage is going to achieve in the years to come, in the 100 years from now, 200 years from now, 300 years from now. All of this is based upon what each of the children in the lineage learns. So you can change the sacred geometrical algorithm of your family's lineage. The descendants of 10,000 generations from now will be affected by the decisions you make today with your children. Now, please also understand, before I let everybody go, please understand that when it comes down to children with obesity, what's not far off if it hasn't happened already with your child, is disease. It's not far off at all. Some type of disease has to happen because of the body being in dis-ease. Understand, when the body comes out of equilibrium, when it comes out of its balance, obesity and is one of the things that may happen, right? But it will also be tied to bone problems for some. For others, it'll be tied to gastrointestinal problems. For others, it'll be tied to cognitive problems. For others, it'll be tied to heart problems, pancreas problems, and the list goes on and on and on and on. There's very few people who are able to be obese for a lifetime and they have no other problems that they have to deal with. Obesity always comes with problems. Well, let's say the bulk of the time it comes with problems. So let's help our children heal. Let's stand together in our community and let's share information. Let's share resources and let's go ahead and help our community heal by us giving love and authenticity, compassion, and empathy. So I'm gonna leave y'all with that. Y'all be blessed and y'all expose your gift.